Welcome to the John Cady Podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired and former minister. In a recent episode of Professor of Rock, Adam Reeder, aka Professor of Rock, did an interesting episode on what if. And in this what if, he talked about some major events in music history and how the timeline and the outcomes would have changed if these events hadn't taken place. Piggybacking on this idea, I'm going through a few of these. I'm using Grok and ChatGPT to come up with the answers on these possible scenarios. Over the next few episodes, I'm going to talk about each one. Today, I'm going to be talking about the legendary rock band AC/DC. In 1980, after a night of heavy drinking, Bon Scott passed out in the back seat of a car and then tragically passed away from alcohol poisoning. His unexpected demise led to major changes in the band, including the frantic search for a replacement, which led to Brian Johnson being AC/DC's frontman for over 45 years. In this scenario, we're going to look at what would happen. What if Bon Scott hadn't died? What if somebody found him in the car or stopped him before he wandered outside, helped him turn around, intervene, and get his act together so at least he got his drinking under control? I'm going to be looking through and reading off of ChatGPT. They seem to have the best format as far as talking about this. So here we go. In the background, according to ChatGPT, in this timeline, Bon Scott survives his 1980 alcohol poisoning scare. After medical intervention and pressure from the band, Bon reins in his drinking enough to continue performing. Bon Scott, in my opinion, was definitely the more charismatic frontman of AC/DC compared to Brian Johnson. Now, there are Brian Johnson fans who would disagree with me. Back in Black, which was in the process of being created at the time of his death, is still written in large part, but Bon Scott contributes lyrics and vocals. His style adds a rougher, bluesier edge compared to Brian Johnson's high-pitched roar. AC/DC's success trajectory remains massive, though the band leans more into the raw, dirty rock and roll with Bon's lyricism, his dark humor, streetwise grit, and sexual bravado. ChatGPT does here a mock discography. At the time of his death, AC/DC's momentum was on the upswing. Highway to Hell had dominated the album charts. The title track became AC/DC's first U.S. chart single, peaking at number 47 on the Hot 100. Things were looking good. Back in Black, under Bon Scott, in this scenario, he contributes the lyrics. 3 singles, according to this, would be released. Back in Black would hit number 5 in the U.S., number 3 in the UK, and it would become AC/DC's first number 1 hit in Australia. You Shook Me All Night Long would hit number 7 in the US and hit number 5 in the UK. Hell's Bells would hit number 12 here in America, and it would peak at number 8 in the UK. Album sales for Back in Black make it one of the all-time greats, even with the actual format with Brian Johnson. That would not change. The follow-up album would not be For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. Bon Scott in charge, there would be a new title, it would be called Iron Fist and Fire. The album cover, according to ChatGPT, would be a glowing steel fist breaking chains, flames in the background, and Bon Scott's smirk in the clouds. Again, 3 more singles would be released. 2 of them would chart here in the U.S., Heat Seeker and Ride the Fist. Heat Seeker would hit number 10 in America, hit number 12 in the UK, and number 5 in Australia, which was the peak chart position in their home country with It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll. Ride the Fist would peak at number 24 in the US. Dirty Rhythm would be a UK release, peaking at number 31. 1984 rolls around. Of course, by then, AC/DC's getting a lot of exposure on MTV, and their raw, unfiltered brand of music is winning over a younger audience. High Voltage 2, the sequel to their earlier album that featured Angus Young on the cover, but in this cover, it would have Bon Scott mocking the schoolboy pose with lightning bolts striking behind. Again, 3 more singles would be released. Shot Down in Flames 84 mix would become another top 10 hit in the US, hitting number 6. Thunder and TNT, number 2 in Australia, number 14 on the Hot 100, and number 7 on the British charts. Burning the Fuse, the third and final single, would be a number 19 release in the US. 2 years later, Hell or Glory. And in this visual, it would be a war-torn battlefield with Bon Scott standing on a tank, waving a microphone. 3 more singles would come out of this one. Devil's Highway would become a number 4 U.S. mainstream rock track, but it would not be a Hot 100 single. Live to Shock would hit number 20 and hit number 18 in the UK. Whiskey Wars, that's a typical Bon Scott theme right there, would hit number 30 here in the U.S. 1988, Steel Salvation. The visual would be a chrome cross with AC/DC's logo etched on it, spotlighted against the darkness. Singles from that album would be Rock the Faithless, which would hit number 9 in the US, number 6 in the UK. Chain Reaction would hit number 22. Blood on the Tracks would hit number 12 in Australia. I'm not sure if this version of Blood on the Tracks was an AC/DC original or if it was a cover of the Bob Dylan song. 1990, an album that in the real world was released with Brian Johnson on vocals, is released as well, this time with Bon Scott. That's The Razor's Edge. The album survives. Bon's vocals and lyrics are biting satire of fame and politics. Bon Scott's sense of humor kicks in, whereas Brian Johnson's loud, thundering voice dominated on the actual album. Thunderstruck and Money Talks, which were hits off of The Razor's Edge, would fare even bigger with Bon Scott's vocals, according to ChatGPT. Thunderstruck would hit the top 5, hit number 5. It would be their second number 1 hit in Australia, and it would hit number 3 in the UK. Money Talks would also hit the top 10, peaking at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it would hit number 14 in Great Britain. Are You Ready would also be a top 40 hit, peaking at number 21. 5 years go by, 1995. Ball Breaker, Moore's blues-driven and raunchy, with Bon Scott steering the lyrics into gutter poetry. That sounds like Bon Scott right there. 2 singles would be released. Hard as a Rock, which would hit the top 10 in the US, number 6. Whiplash Woman would be a UK release, peaking at number 19. Stiff Upper Lip. The visual would be a little different. Bon Scott would be older but still sneering on the cover like he always did, this time in the form of a bronze statue. The title track would hit number 12 in the US, hit number 5 in Australia. Safe in Hell would be released in the UK and hit number 33. Black Ice, which was released with Brian Johnson's vocals in real life, but under Bon Scott, it says here, aging but powerful Bon's smoky voice contrasts with Angus's still youthful guitar attack. Rock and Roll Train would be a hit on the mainstream rock charts, but it wouldn't cross over to the Hot 100, but it would hit number 1 just the same. Big Jack would hit number 17 on the Hot 100. Their final album on this list, Rock or Bust, which is another Brian Johnson fronted album, except this time it has Bon Scott, who, according to this, now a grizzled legend, he's pushing 70 at this point, delivers a raw performance despite his age. The album becomes a late career classic. Singles, Play Ball, which would hit number 1 on the mainstream rock charts, and then Rock or Bust would be their final UK release, peaking at number 20. Now, as far as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in 2004, AC/DC was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Both Bon Scott and Brian Johnson were included. With Bon Scott alive, AC/DC would still be inducted in 2004, but instead of a tribute, he would be there in person. He'd be cracking jokes, and Angus Young would be smiling at everybody and saying, "Hey, he's the world's greatest bad influence." So, if Bon Scott had survived, according to AI, and Grok gave out similar results as well, AC/DC would still have been a rock and roll juggernaut. Bon Scott would probably still taken the band to greater heights, just as Brian Johnson did when he took over. and the band's legacy would be very well secure. For the Brian Johnson fans, that would be a disappointment because that would mean he would still be an obscure rocker over in the UK, best known for fronting the band Geordie. But it's still interesting to look, and it's an interesting rabbit hole to go down. This is John Cady. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you like the content, please click like or subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.